So it sounds like you created basically like a weighted matrix of all these different elements for
Yes.
the output. And then
Right.
you're also looking at tools as well. And now you have like engineers trying to implement this. And so are you currently like pre-revenue? Or are you bringing in, do you have any early adopters?
No, we're pre-revenue, so we just have our prototype now. So anything that generates copy for brands, that's how it's going to protect first. And then we'll move on to image and video and have a whole content firewall. But right now it's just starting with velocity is outpaced governance. I always say this: velocity is far outpaced governance. So coming in here with a solution that allows these brands now to adopt AI and offer these exclusive experiences that only AI can do, we're allowing those brands to do that.
Jason, welcome to Product Growth Stories. I'm so happy to have you on the show. And you are building LuxeDetect. Can you just tell me, like, what problem are you trying to solve in the market with this?
Well, it's, I have a luxury e-commerce agency and I have for a few years. And one of the biggest things when AI first came out was trying to use it for my clients was like almost impossible. Because one thing I realized with AI and brands is that, brands have a specific brand voice. You have to really be specific with it. Their customers expect it. And AI was really bad at maintaining that brand voice. So what was really missing in the market was this, like, the decision layer, the security layer. So if anything reached the public and that was brand voice drift, we wanted to build a system that would actually stop any off-brand content from reaching the public and it's generated by
And
AI.
when you say brand voice and off-brand content, for those who aren't currently
Totally.
scaling, e-com brands, they might not know, what does that even, like, what does that mean? What is brand voice when it comes to e-commerce?
Well, if you think about it, so Air Canada is a good example of this. They have a chatbot, and there was someone who was just using the chatbot looking at bereavement fairs and got information from Air Canada. And it said that the chatbot said that if you wanted a bereavement fair, someone in your family dies, you got to go to a funeral, you'll have to take the flight and then submit your receipt to get that bereavement fair reimbursement. But that was incorrect. So it was totally a hallucinated fact. So this person sued Air Canada and they won because Air Canada's defense was all, this is AI. It's not a mistake I made.
Yeah, no one cares.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a really good example of I wasn't expecting. That's a great example of where, just everyone who's using AI knows that sometimes it just makes stuff up and it's super confident. And if you
Totally.
do that to a customer in the wrong way, it could cost you a lot of money, or a lawsuit in this case, or even the wrong fares, the wrong process.
Exactly.
Are there other areas that you said brand voice, but the example you gave was it just made up something incredibly false? Are there other areas where it's like, oh, that's brand voice?
Yeah, you know what? There's different. Had to actually do this. I mean, we had to think of a way to quantify brand voice alignment. So there's lots of little details within a brand voice guide that says exactly how either your content or your customer service needs to speak on the brand's behalf. McDonald's was another example where their AI ordering system went completely nuts on the day that they launched it because it just made up nugget orders. It made up menu. So this is fairly brand voice drift. So if there was something that could actually detect brand voice, so anything that you're supposed to say and what you're not supposed to say, there's different levels of it and there's different degrees of, I guess, damage that it could do to your brand. So there's, something as simple as a hyphen, so hyphenation misuse, or an exclamation point that's maybe emotional constraint wasn't taken into consideration. That's part of your brand voice. So there's those little things that will just look weird when somebody receives a text message or an email. But then there's something that could be culturally insensitive. You say it in a certain way that's been translated wrong, and you're in an emerging market and you're selling in Australia and Asia, and you've said something that it doesn't really quite match what that culture would say, or it's offensive in some way, then that can damage a brand's reputation hugely. It's amplified, way faster than it would before. On social media, even the smallest, it gets amplified.
Especially if you make a gaffe, that's so shareable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I love it. And I think people have like love and hate for AI right now. There's like the business owner view is very different from the average person. Not everyone is super happy.
No. Everyone sounds the same. You go on LinkedIn and as soon as I see these little freaking dashes everywhere, I know it's AI because who else used them before? Nobody. And it's
the 8 people that used it before are so upset right now.
Yes, totally right.
Now they can't do it, That was their brand voice before. Well, without getting into, overly technical, this sounds hard to
Right.
do. This sounds like a hard problem to solve because there's so many ways it could go wrong, and you can't like write the world's biggest rule book. So is there a way you can, like, without going into the extreme technical detail, like how in the world did you solve this problem?
Well, originally, when AI first started really flooding the market, our agency, I was like, okay, we got to stay ahead of the curve here. I got to get up to date on AI, what it can do for marketing. And so I decided to evaluate AI tools. So I created a kind of an evaluation system with different categories of AI tools. So your writing tools, image creation tools. And I wanted to understand, okay, if a brand was going to use it, did these tools have the capability to align to their specific brand voice? So it really was just measuring how well the outputs were against that brand voice. So I evaluated about 100, I was 132 tools, and I created a scoring system from 0 to 1,000. So it's on like a bit of a spectrum. So the higher, the better. And nothing scored above, I think it was 700. So to get luxury alignment, we're looking for perfect brand voice alignment. So we just realized that these 132 tools were not ready for brands to use, and they couldn't trust them because it would not do what the brand voice guide said. There's guardrails. I mean, there's a difference between like features within a tool that allow you to put in some brand voice specifics, but it doesn't follow that. So there's nothing really, I realized there was nothing really that would stop anything from being published that was not on brand. So I looked at these evaluations and thought, okay, well, the opportunity here isn't really that we're just going to give brands information on what their tool or what AI tool would perform at. The real opportunity we discovered was always on firewall that would actually evaluate the output against the brand voice standards. So we switched this into us evaluating tools into creating an evaluation system that could grade the output against brand voice. So understanding the specifics of brand voice guide. So what we did is, this is about 8 months ago now, we applied to the Vector Institute. It's a Vector AI Institute. It's in Toronto. They build prototypes, and we got funding for their students to build our prototypes. So they liked our idea, and then it's going to be completed in about a week. So we have our prototype. So they've taken our scoring system, which measures voice alignment. So the way you quantify it, there's different categories. So there's like hyphenation misuse. There's different ways to do it, and then there's deductions that come across that are flagged for inconsistency. So it scores every output, and then yeah, that's how it works. Was that a good answer? No.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like you created basically like a weighted matrix of all these different elements for
Yes.
the output. And then
Right.
you're also looking at tools as well. And now you have like engineers trying to implement this. And so are you currently like pre-revenue? Or are you bringing in, do you have any early adopters?
No, we're pre-revenue. So we just have our prototype now. So what we're working on is having it able to, we're going to have an API connection to HubSpot, Salesforce, ChatGPT. So any company can just plug it into any of the tools that they're using to create copy across ads, blog, whatever. And that's our first phase, is doing the copy tools. So anything that generates copy for brands, that's how it's going to protect first. And then we'll move on to image and video and have a whole content firewall. But right now it's just starting with copy.
Got it. Cool. So yeah, early days.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because you have so much experience marketing, but in another area, but not necessarily because they're very similar buyers. Do you have, like, how do you plan to go to market for this? And is there anything, as you're looking at the different ways that you realize, okay, there are some things that are completely off the table because of what you're building?
Yeah. There's a couple things. Well, I'll start by this. Brand voice and brand equity is a business. So this is a system that we're building for enterprise brands and luxury brands because they're the ones that have invested the most. Their equity is their business. So if their reputation is damaged, it's a huge hit to their bottom line. So we want to make sure that we are hitting that problem for these enterprise brands. As you're building your brand voice over time, little slips don't matter as much as, like I said, McDonald's or Air Canada or Gucci. They want hit that brand voice specifically because that's their reputation. So any way that they offend their customers, if it's indirectly or not, AI can do that quite quickly. So it's for those brands that really have that equity as their business. And
Yeah. And that's not everybody, obviously. This is more enterprise side where you actually have real brand value, not like, you're trying to, which is different than trying to make early sales that a lot of brands might be in this position.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've looked at some other companies like Datadog, who does infrastructure. They protect apps. And we are in the business of protecting brand voice and brand equity. So we're in that infrastructure layer. So that's the lane that we're in, rather than a tool like Grammarly or something like that, which is a writing tool which helps individuals create better copy in a different way. Ours is about protecting brand teams. So it's for a team environment when the team is actually trying to create content on behalf of the brand. So it's a little bit different there, but the biggest thing is I wanted to make sure that the brands could still have control. So one of these things that I get asked this all the time, why is it not self-learning, improving itself over time? Whenever I ask that question, it's a big fat no. No, it's not going to improve itself over time because it needed to be deterministic to give brands that control over AI. So if we allowed this tool to learn the brand voice and then improve itself, that would take away the control from the brand. So we had to make it this system that could catch misalignment and then log it. So if brands are ever asked, are you compliant? They have this audit trail that we can give them that actually shows that they're compliant when using AI. So it kind of checks all the boxes that way. But yeah, keeping it deterministic was the thing. It's not like necessarily an AI system that just improves itself. We make sure that
I can see how that could be very hard, especially with problems with AI. Like once, if you've ever tried to get AI to validate itself, it will kind of invent those things too. It will invent the proof that it's made the right decision. So I love that it's an external system and that you're making it deterministic. Yeah, it seems like such a valuable and tricky problem and really good timing right now. Yeah, I hope so too for you. And so are you aiming for like a specific early adopter?
Well, you know what? This is the thing. We're going to Web Summit. We applied to Web Summit. We're going to be there in 2 weeks. And this is kind of the first step to get some feedback on what we built. I mean, up until now, sure, we gotten feedback from Vector. We've gotten some funding from the government. So we know we're on the right track. But now the real investors are going to be there. We want to be in the room because this is where the conversation is. And, there's going to be some eyes on us now. So I'm practicing what I'm going to say because there's a lot. This is a way to do it too, because it's nerve-wracking putting yourself out there like this. But my whole life I figure it's come to this point, and I want to get in that room and just share what I built, because I think that at this point I'm proud of it and I'm excited to launch. But we're just going to have a prototype now. In 2 weeks we'll have a prototype, and then we have to build this into an actual software tool. So that's the next step, is hopefully getting some cash and getting this built. And then we're not too far from launch after that. I mean, depending on how long that takes, I'm not quite sure. But you know how long it takes, probably more than me. How long does that take? Building it.
How long is it to actually build an app?
Well, or an actual software tool. So to build this, so take this prototype and now make it into, an interface where it has like a dashboard that shows all the outputs for the day.
I think for you, the hard thing is going to be actually making it work and proving that it works. That's going to be really difficult, more than the interface, especially what you're building. You're like building an insurance policy, right? You're selling this insurance policy. Yes. And whoever buys this is not going to be the person approving this is never going to use it. Like it's going to be some other person. And I think, the interesting thing I think for me is like, man, how can you quantify success? It's very hard to sell things that remove problems because they're kind of invisible when they're working really well. So it's going to be interesting. Like, how do we show here was this near horrible thing and we stopped it, guys? Like that's going to be very interesting to be able to show. But I think some of those things you mentioned already that are in the news are already like data points to your favor. But in terms of building an app, it really depends on the team and how complicated it is. It depends. Sure. But for you, I imagine it's going to be a lot around confidence for these guys that, because I also imagine this is not something that, like, for example, if your product was very cheap, nobody would buy it.
That's right.
This has to be expensive to even be credible. And so it's going to be really, very interesting product. Well, what do you say, apart from just being really aware of this problem, what do you think in terms of marketing it? What do you think you can use from what you've learned already running marketing agency for these brands? Like is there any crossover that you think applies that would be useful advice for other founders who are also pivoting into, or anyone who's taking their, previous domain experience and pivoting it into an app? What have you learned so far that you think is worth sharing?
Well, you know what? I think that at the beginning, I don't think I was thinking big enough, because I thought I was just going to have a podcast to review tools. It wasn't until that I got some interest they showed me, okay, this is a little bit bigger than just doing an evaluation system. So I think that had I thought bigger at the beginning, I could have planned a little bit more then, versus now kind of going, okay, now I can do it better. And there's probably still even more I can do that I'm not thinking. So being able to think bigger than my mind allowed at that time was something that other people had to show me. So I maybe, even though I thought I was confident in what I was creating, it wasn't as big as what other people thought. So I almost was limiting myself by thinking, oh, maybe this is good enough, but it was bigger than that. So I'm realizing that maybe my own potential comes from this years of experience that I've had. Originally I wanted to be a reporter, a weatherman. I went to school for journalism, and then at a journalism school, I decided I didn't want to be a reporter anymore because I was going to be poor and not pay off my
Yeah,
So
started solving a different problem. Yeah. Yeah, that's
So-
interesting. So you're just seeing, yeah, and very interesting about like seeing the size of the problem you need to tackle. I love that point because it's really tricky, right? If you do something too small, then it's not that you don't solve enough of the problem for the client to
Exactly.
be interested. You're like, oh, you slightly improve. It has to like completely solve a problem for most people to be interested, and you're going after very, what's the right word, sophisticated customers.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then on the other hand, if you go to like imagining, like starting to believe that you're Steve Jobs, it's impossible. It goes way too big. You need so much external funding, and the risk goes extremely high. It is difficult to know like what cards I think to play. So I love this point.
Oh, totally. Yes. And, realizing over the years when I got into marketing was just because I auditioned for a TV show gig, and it was on cruise ships hosting a TV show about buying diamonds in the Caribbean. So it was like a shopping channel sort of situation, but I was kind of thrust into the luxury market. So I was working with brands like Rolex and Cartier and David Yurman, and they were very particular with what they wanted to, how they shared their story and how they described their products. And so making sure that even my writing and my scripts that I was writing was on brand for them was a huge job, and I got it wrong all the time. So it was really their brand leaders that were really hard on me, thinking, okay, our brand voice is this, you have to speak like this, don't use these words, speak to this lady like this way. So they have personas and different target audience, and they all take a different tone. So I learned that really quick on ships, and I was there for 10 years. And then I met my husband now, who's a growth marketer, and he's really into data. He was actually the first influencer on MySpace that had 1 million followers. He had this called the Fresh Page that was all house music, and that was really back in the day. But he kind of got me to understand data and understanding the analytics side of content. So I became a content marketer, and we brought on clients just of him being a growth marketer and me being a content marketer, and we kind of scaled our agency that way. And that's when AI hit, and we realized the problem is all these clients that we had were trying to use AI. A lot of them were new luxury brands that were just starting out. And if you're trying to compete with someone like Louis Vuitton that has over 70 brands, they are able to offer their customers something more. When you adopt AI, you're allowed to do more. You can do more. Velocity, more people, more outputs, but velocity has
more risk. Right.
Way more risk.
Yeah.
I mean, velocity's outpaced governance. I always say this. Velocity is far outpaced governance. So coming in here with a solution that allows these brands now to adopt AI and offer these exclusive experiences that only AI can do, we're allowing those brands to do that. So that's kind of the problem that I think that we're solving by giving these brands an opportunity to compete with the big guys, because you can't do it unless you're adopting AI, and you're doing it at a huge risk. So you're going to have to do it anyway. So here's a security layer that will allow you to do it and not have to worry about the risk to your reputation. So
yeah,
that's really that's it.
I love it. Well, as we wrap up, what would you say, what would your number one advice be to other founders who are coming into SaaS, given what you've learned so far? Like, what's your number one piece of advice for?
Well, you know what? I think a lot of what I've done over the last 2 years is thinking about putting myself out there and really delaying it, because even though I thought I created something amazing at the time, and it turned out that my mind wasn't maybe thinking big enough, I really celebrated that as a win for me. But then when I realized it wasn't big enough, I was almost embarrassed that I wasn't thinking big enough. And I think that embarrassment, that fear that I had, it's kind of gone now. I'm thinking of that as like a stepping stone to get to where I want to be. So rather than being embarrassed of, someone looking at it and being like, that's not big enough, what the hell are you thinking? You could have thought way bigger than that. That's the process. It's supposed to happen now. You're learning from others, rather as it's not a loss if that happens, and you don't have to take it so hard, which I was hard on myself. Founders probably are.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, if you can keep going and not run out of cash and learn, like, you can't lose, right? So I love that. Well, thank you so much, Jason. It's been a great conversation.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.